This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshido. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the lean builder, Hoots on the ground with No Bullshido. And today I am so excited. We have got actually one of my coaches, Mr. Hal Macomber. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning. I can't tell the world how excited I am right now having you coach me for it was probably 6 months to a year or so, maybe a couple years ago. As I was getting my business going, I reached out to you and said, Hal, I need some help here. And you graciously accepted. Personally, you are one of my lean idols, Hal. I have about 6 or 7 of those throughout the country. People who I just look up to, admire, and know that they're doing things right. Their heart's in the right spot. And so to get the chance to introduce you to the Lean Builder Nation today, as I look back, we've been doing these for 3, almost 4 years now, and not to have had you on the show is slightly embarrassing. So again, welcome to the show. I want to get it kicked off and just tell the world a little bit about who you are from your perspective. How would you explain to this world the great Hal Macomber?
Well, I'd start with saying I'm retired, but that's after spending something like the past 25 years in the lean construction community and being there at the very beginning of the public side of lean construction and developing it and working with it myself, helping companies along the way, helping people along the way like you. But before that, I'm a guy that studied operation science. I studied statistics. I studied Toyota. I visited Toyota in Japan many years ago, half a lifetime ago. I'm 72 right now. I was 36 then. Yep. Half a lifetime ago, I visited Toyota in Japan. And I've been trying to bring this to the construction industry for the last 25 years.
I love it. I know that you are very passionate about specifically the people side of lean construction. How has the journey gone? If you're trying to bring lean over from Japan, which, oh, by the way, IGLC is in Japan this year.
I know.
And I had a paper accepted and
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And it's actually a paper that Dr. Milberg and I started 8 years ago. I took it, finished it, and he and I submitted it, and I'm so excited for that. But anyway, I'm fascinated with Japan. I'm fascinated with the Japanese language. In fact, I am learning Japanese right now. Help me understand, how far have we come? Are we getting there? Are we bringing the right stuff? 25 years is a long time to have been working on this. How are we doing?
So I would say, let me just correct a misunderstanding that people have about lean construction. It didn't stem from the Toyota production system or lean in general. The IGLC started out as a very small group, and one of the members, Larry Koskela, was visiting in the United States, and he saw what was going on at Fremont, and he recognized the ideas, the things that they were trying to do married up well with what's going on in the lean construction world.
And this is Toyota GM combo is what?
Yes, in Fremont, California. That then led to one thing and led to another, and eventually the Lean Construction Institute was founded. At that point in time, it was 4 people that founded it, but very quickly I got connected to it and spent the last 25 plus years doing that. So how are we doing? Like measuring it in terms of what happens at the Congress, the Lean Construction Congress, is one way of doing it. It always seemed like, well, we're just on the cusp of making this thing happen. And 25 years later, I think we're just on the cusp of making this thing happen. But I'm less optimistic than I was 20 years ago.
Interesting.
because there's too much going on that is conflicting. And I'll just say that the current fascination with AI is just one of them. Investing in AI, which certainly large construction companies are doing that, that's going to take their attention away from investing in their people on the ground on their projects in a new way of working. And that's what you have to do. You have to invest in the people to bring about a new way of working. So do we have attention for all that as leaders in companies? I don't know. I'm not saying we don't. I'm saying I don't know. So there's a lot of good stuff that's happened. There's a lot of large, particularly large top 10 companies. I think the AGC top 10 are all doing lean construction to some extent or another. But I don't know of one of those 10 firms that are doing it wholesale across the business. I'd love to be corrected on that. I would hope somebody listens to you and knows that one of the top firms that's doing it across the board. Consider an alternative delivery approach. That's how people, it's like the mindset. Yeah, well, we could do typical CMGC buyout and execution, or we could do this design build thing, or we could do this lean thing. And I would say that is a misunderstanding of what lean is all about. And that's got to get corrected in some way.
Yeah.
So let's try to do a little bit of that on this call today. Let's see if we can correct some of that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think every time we talk, I think we venture into that category. I've got 2 questions on my mind. I'm going to hit you and maybe you can answer just high level. You kind of explained how we've done over the last 25 years. And sorry, I laughed when you said, hey, we were on the cusp 25 years ago and you still feel like we're on the cusp. I think that was, again, just from my insights and feeling that way for the last 10, 12 years, I still feel like I'm on the cusp of doing something big too. Toyota, the kata improvement method says, okay, well, you got to start with your goal, start with the end stage in mind. So if we want to talk about changing construction, what does that look like? What do we need? What does the utopia of construction look like from your lens?
Well, I'll put it in a few items. The one is that it's continuous flow construction.
Ooh, I like that.
That is affordable. And continuous flow construction will also be as fast as you could make it. Not 1 week Takt, but 3-hour Takt. 4% of the time as opposed to 1 week would be 100% of the time. So that would be, if it get a 96% reduction, that would be pretty cool. And we do it. There are environments that we have 3-hour Takt times.
Yeah, nuclear, for instance, all the time.
Well, I don't know about nuclear, but I definitely know about summer slammers, the renovation of academic facilities. They have 10 weeks to do that. And then the students are back in school. And it's hard to do the space that the people are occupying, right? So it gets done, and it only gets done by having as short as 3-hour Takt. I mean, I've seen shorter, but basically that's a really good and approachable way of doing it. But 2 to 3 years before you do that work, you've got to design it so that design the renovation, let's call it a renovation, so that it can be done in a 3-hour Takt, that the materials that are selected or the assemblies that are prefabricated or whatever it is, the logistics plan, the capability of the trade contractors, all that considers that it's going to be a 3-hour Takt. It's going to get done in 8 weeks.
Yeah, designed with the beat in mind. Yeah,
exactly. Designed with the beat in mind. Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. A second aspect is the people need to be ready for this. And when I say the people who are putting the work in place, the people who are designing the structure, whatever it is, building or bridge or whatever it is, and particularly the engineers, they've all got to be like, this is going to be put in place differently, and we need to have that sensibility. And it's an operation science sensibility. And I say that it might be off-putting to people who call it operation science, but there's 4 simple rules of any production activity. And you don't follow them, you're going to get long processes. And so you need to know the law of variation and how it applies. You need to know Little's law, the law of bottlenecks and Kingman's formula. And you don't need to know more than that, but you don't need to be able to prove that those laws are appropriate, but you do need the sensibility for doing that. So in other words, when you get behind, you don't just launch more work. You figure out what's wrong with the capacity that you have that you got behind, because launching more work now makes the project longer. And that's explained very nicely by Little's Law, but most people don't know Little's Law. So,
you know how when I'm in a room coaching teams, I stick to those 4 laws. You taught me those 4 laws. And as I'm explaining them, there's a lot of times the old dogs in the room is what I call them, right? The great builders who've been doing this for a while, and they might use lean principles, but they just don't call it that. Those old dogs always will be shaking their heads, laughing. As soon as I start explaining Little's Law and the 3 main pieces, right? The work in small batches, limit your working process, and finish things as you go, right? Like that. And everybody starts laughing. For some reason, we don't do that in construction, right? And then when you talk about the variation, right? Hey, shit happens in construction, and it's going to happen. And the longer you let it happen, it gets worse. These 4 production laws, it took me my career to really understand them, but to be able to hear them from you in such a simple way, those 4 laws have put words to my experience and allowed me to share it faster with other people. So I'm grateful for that. And again, those of you who don't know that, I don't want this to be about them, but go look them up. The 4 production laws, again, Little's Law, Kingman Formula, the law of variation, and the law of bottlenecks. Hugely important, especially to establishing what you called it, continuous flow construction. And I love that term, I guess. So if we're getting people ready for what's about to come, what does that look like?
Yeah. So they need to be well introduced to it. And that can be done in a variety of ways. But let me just say that you can't do continuous flow construction if people aren't takt time ready to do the operations that they need to do.
Which is the operation science that you're speaking about.
Well, whatever the operation is, it's putting drywall in place, or it's whatever it is. You've got to be takt time proficient at doing it, or you get behind right away doing it, and that just cascades, and you stay behind. So, equipping the people who are going to join a continuous flow construction project requires that you do stuff like that. Now, a plumber is not a plumber, not a plumber. There's plumbers who can weld stainless steel, and there's plumbers who are only going to do PVC. And not that the guy that's doing PVC can't be taught to do stainless, but boy, there's a lot of welding that you need to do before you get there. And then become takt time proficient, whatever that is. It's 3 hours or it's 15 minutes or whatever it is. To do that, they need to be proficient at what the takt time is. So the people have to have a sensibility about generally, just give me more of that. No, that's not what we want to do. They need to be able to perform at the takt that is desired. And in essence, people need to be really engaged in the work. And that's normally not a function of the individual. It's normally a function of the way they're managed. And most of the population, I know it's over 75% of the work population is, in general, is not engaged. And in the construction industry, it's got to be higher than that. I've seen higher numbers as high as 80+%, but that's a while ago. But before we go down this takt time thing, let's talk about how you can get there. In the last planner system, if there's something widely used in the lean construction setting, it's the last planner system.
Oh, you mean that pull planning stuff?
That was an add-on. There wasn't pull planning at one time.
Huh.
It was previously known as reverse phase scheduling.
Okay.
So there was phase scheduling. It was basically a CPM kind of download that began it. Over the course of a few years, it became reverse phase scheduling, became pull planning, and it stayed there. It became the thing because it was originally done with sticky notes. And that was very different, particularly to see sticky notes in a trailer as opposed to a printout of a CPM. But the interesting thing is the Last Planner system, I call it a Kaizen method. While we were preparing it to get into this session, you said, no, it's not. And I, without even asking me why did I say it was a Kaizen method, just kind of like, no, I don't know what you think Kaizen methods are, but it's a Kaizen method because it does one thing that's really important. And before I tell you what that is, I'm going to say Kaizen is completely misunderstood. People think Kaizen means continuous improvement and specifically the elimination of waste. That is wrong. That's absolutely wrong. There's two words for improvement in Japanese. And the first word for improvement is ryo. It basically means to improve something. So yeah, improve the way we handle material, improve the way that we calibrate a tool or whatever it is we want to improve. That's Kairyo. But Kaizen is nothing like Kairyo. Kaizen is improving oneself by taking the opportunity of the environment you're in. And that can be a work environment, that can be a home environment, that can be a play environment, that you can do Kaizen in all environments, that you use the environment and the activity that you're in to improve yourself on an ongoing basis. Now, that's probably new, and people might be saying, what the hell is this guy talking about? Because we all know that Kaizen, change for the better, that's all about reducing waste. It's like, yeah, except it's not at Toyota and it's not at Subaru and it's not at a whole bunch of companies who actually speak the language, and because it's their language, at least at home, and they've exported Kaizen so that people at Toyota or wherever, they are fundamentally enjoying being there because they are engaged, they are improving, and that engages them in their work. And that's where we need to get to. It's a fundamental flaw. It happened because of poor translation, of both poor translation of the original Toyota books and poor translation of many that followed and continued with those poor translations.
I got to apologize for not pausing and asking the question. I have not seen the Last Planner system used in such a way that Kaizen, that I would classify it as Kaizen. So there's a big disconnect there for me, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of an explanation. I think you're starting to talk a little bit about the fundamental gap that I think we have in construction. And I think a lot of businesses have, actually. I don't think that's narrowed down just to construction. I love your explanation of Kaizen. We are eliminating waste. We are increasing efficiency because we care so much about the people that are living in that world, that we want to better engage, create an environment of excitement, fun, energy, positivity, like almost in an addictive kind of format where, hey, I want to show up to work, like walking around the field office, thank God it's Monday, right? To me, that is honestly, that's one of the things I think I love bringing to a team is just a smile. And so can you please help me connect the dots a little bit more on your statement of Last Planner system being used as a Kaizen method?
I'm saying it is a Kaizen method, not being used as one.
Okay.
So the design of the system from the start is such that it's a learning system. You probably know the structure of should, can, will, did in terms of the planning process. And the Last Planner system is a production control system. It's not a construction system.
So I'm very familiar with that, but just for the people listening, right? You're talking about the master level schedule is what we should do. And then we start getting into the phase schedule, making work ready. And now we're talking about what we can do. And then we're talking about the weekly work plan, which is what we will do. And then our daily huddles is what we did. And then there's this element of connecting the system with feedback from learning to feed that back up into our filtered approach.
Yeah. And so at each level, from should to can, you say, I should be doing whatever, putting in place so many yards of concrete. But when I sit down to do my can plan, like putting the work, making it ready, I can't get a loader that I need, or I can't get the people I need to finish concrete. And so I only can do, let's say, 8% less than that. So there's a feedback loop from can to should to say, right at the beginning, before we're even putting work in place, we're signaling back that we've got something different from what we should be doing.
There's a disturbance. Oh, yeah.
There's a disturbance, but it's an aberration of whatever. And should is followed by can is followed by will. So I get can, I know I've got, let's say, whatever the capacities are, and I go to do it, and I have a difference, not aberration, but a variation to what we're setting out to do. But the did, learned, the will, the promise goes back to the will, or the can, excuse me, which goes back to the should. And then we get to the did, and that also goes back, and it's all these loops go back. So you've got a learning cycle. And by the way, after many, I don't know how many years, let's say something like 10 years, we began working in California, and a guy named Will Lichtig, I'm pretty sure it was him that said, we should rename it should, can, will, did, learn, because the learning isn't just about the feedback loop, any one aspect of feedback to the prior steps, but it is a look at, so at a system level, at a project level, what are we learning? And we're not getting up to speed as fast as we thought we would be, or we thought we'd have more talent in this one particular area than we're getting, or whatever it is. Or we're learning much faster, or our supply chain is slower than we thought it was going to be, whatever it is. So should, can, will, did, learn is the structure of it. And that structure makes it a learning system. Now, that alone is not enough, because what we do is we make improvements. We get the signal in the feedback to say an improvement is required. So we go to improve something. Now, remember, improving something is called Kyrio. That's improving something. But improving something, when it's taken to a person who's improving it or a team that's improving it, they learn how to do something that they weren't able to do before. And so when you particularly couple the intent to grow people's capability with the need for making improvements to the work system or the work activities, you get the possibility of Kaizen. And there's a particular pattern, and the pattern is there's a gap. That gap is followed by something like Toyota Kata, which is an experimental approach, successive small experiments that provide the learning so that you know what improvement's going to work. So then you do the Kairio. That's followed by reflection. The Japanese word, since we're using them, is Hansei for that. That's then followed by another practice called Yokoten, which is broadly sharing that. And then there's the next gap. And that pattern from gap through next gap is the Kaizen pattern. And that Kaizen pattern, that's the last planner system, is designed as the system for that pattern. And we didn't use, Glenn Ballard and Greg Howell did not use those Japanese terms because they started without the Japanese terms in mind. That came later. How was that for explaining it as last planner system as a Kaizen method?
I think last planner designed as a Kaizen method is landing closer to home.
No. Yeah, but I'm not saying it was designed as a Kaizen method. I'm saying it has a structure where learning, not just the opportunities for learning are designed in with the feedback loops, but specifically learning is designed in. And a company that does work the typical way is about 50% reliable, 50 to 60% reliable in terms of completion of the project. And those studies have been done for 30 years. It goes back 30 years. It hasn't changed in 30 years. But the last planner system, adopting the last planner system, it goes from 60 to 70% reliable to 80% reliable. It's like you don't get those improvements without doing Kyrio, without specifically improving something. And you don't keep getting to do that without the people building the capability, their own capability to solve those kind of problems. So it's going from 60% reliable to something north of 90%. And we're talking about you do what you say you're going to do, complete a phase or whatever, 90+% of the time on time.
So the dots are connecting, but I'm still not sold. I mean, I think I see the intention being there. I see us improving flow. I see us establishing a production plan through the last planner system. I see the intention in what you're saying, but I don't see it on job sites. I don't see us using the system as a whole in each piece of this in order to call it Kaizen.
It's in use as opposed to as it's been espoused. That's the difference. And so I'm not saying that it's espoused as a Kaizen method. I'm saying that by its design, if you use it as it's designed, it is a Kaizen method. And we're not seeing people using it as designed. I mean, you opened with the conversation when it's like, I was speaking about last planner system, you say, oh yeah, that pull planning thing. Yes, that collaborative process of working out the handoffs from trade to trade, from operation to operation, is a key element of it. But it's way more than that. And it's been way more than that from the beginning. And there are companies like a couple that you worked at. There are projects that are really good at using the last planner system. And then there's projects at the same companies they're clueless. They don't even know that there's a last planner system being used elsewhere, let alone continuous flow construction, which people think is a pipe dream. And it's not. So I speak about the last planner system because in essence, we don't have something in continuous flow construction that is like the last planner system, not yet. And because let's just say using Takt construction practices as they've been designed doesn't automatically produce the better results. And for a lot of different reasons, which I want to get into. But part of it is the design is inadequate.
The design, the contract document design, the project design, or the production system design, which one?
The production system design is missing major elements that are present in the last planner system. And I'm not saying just import the practice because that doesn't meet everything. Okay. And I'll go through that.
So you just connected a lot of things for me. I believe if I hear what you're saying, the utopia version of construction has what you referred to as continuous flow construction, people who are prepared to, and you keep using the term Takt construction, and I've picked up on that a few times, and I'm curious about that, but say people that are prepared for Takt construction. What else is that utopia? Are there a couple other major points? I mean, I hear Kaizen in that talk as well. What else? How do we wrap up that utopia of construction?
Okay. So let's not call it utopia. It's a work in progress. So for some companies, and it's an opportunity for probably most others, the utopia for continuous flow construction is it starts with the design of whatever structures going in play, can be put in place so that you know that you're designing for continuous flow. Toyota knows that they're designing the Camry for continuous flow assembly. They know it. And so they choose aspects of the design, including the materiality. So metal in one place and plastic in another, and not necessarily because of a safety issue, but because of a assembly issue or fabrication issue or whatever. But they design it knowing that each step of the process needs to be somewhere between 3/4 of a minute and 2 minutes. And that depends on the vehicle that they're building. That's the range that the Takt's going to be. And the designers know what that is for the particular vehicle they're designing. So it starts there. And then throughout the whole process, that continues, including preparing the workforce to go then put the work in place or do the fabrication before the work is put in place. The whole thing needs to be done. So from a clean sheet of paper until the selection of the tools. The plumber doesn't need to wait until they get to the job site to know what tools they're going to need, because they can tell by a print set. I need a ratchet that has only 2 bits on it, one at 3/8 and one at 5/16, and that's it. They don't need a tool chest for that operation. That's not the way it works today. We send people out with their tool chests and we protect their assets. We don't even provide those assets in most cases. We protect those assets in a cage that is potentially locked, but sometimes not. So the tool disappears, and now they're not able to do that work the next day. So I'll leave it at that. I want to get more into the specifics of continuous flow construction here.
So let's flip into it. I think you did a wonderful job talking about the goal, and I think you even somewhat addressed our current condition in the same breath. And so I'm really curious, what are the intermediate milestones that we're chasing, and what are those experiments that you think our industry needs to take in order to achieve or move closer towards this continuous flow construction goal?
So there is a misnomer. I don't know where this came from, but the general understanding is flow where you can, pull where you can't, and push where you must. The push where you must is no, that's not there. Because push, if you refer back to the 4 production laws, push now makes the project longer. And you've got to stop pushing. So it's flow where you can and pull where you can't. And the last planar system and a continuous flow construction will include both aspects of flow where you can and pull where you can't, but they don't need push when you must. And I don't know who first said that, but it was said within the industry. And I see it on slides, and it's like I get upset about it and write the person who's got the slide and say, hey, get this off the slide.
Yeah.
Because that's
this is
not
a big debate between Charlie Dunn and myself, by the way. And Charlie just went to work with Mortensen. So I'm super excited to hear more about that. But Charlie and I have forever gone back and forth on this, because he adds this push when you must. And he always references the supply chain and trying to push materials when you can, things like that. I would love to have you two have that conversation. He credits this back to Ono, who never said the push.
Ono never said that. Ono said, no, he did not say that. He said, flow where you can.
I agree with that 100%. And I read it somewhere. I cannot remember where I read that, but so are you telling me in no circumstance is push the right method?
In no circumstance.
Thank you.
So continuous flow construction is currently practiced. It's not a Kaizen method. In other words, doing CAD construction doesn't result in better flow throughout the project. It results in whatever flow you've got, but it doesn't improve it. And it doesn't result in continuous growth of the people in the system. And I say continuous, like through the life. It's often understood as a better planning system. So you've heard over the years, Takt planning, and Takt just means the interval of time from starting an operation to finishing it. That time,
uniform time, beat,
right? Drum beat is the typical term. Now, while it's understood as a better planning system, It's really a radical departure from current practice, and particularly any time that the Takt is less than 1 week. 1 week where Saturday overtime is possible, you can just about get whatever work done that you were planning to get done in a week by at least, let's call it Monday through Friday work week, by Monday morning at 6:30 a.m. when everyone starts again. You can hit the takt time and you don't make profound change at that level. But get down to 1 day, even getting to 2 days or 3 days is, 3 days, maybe there's 2-3 day periods in a week if Saturdays are required, but that's going to begin to cause some change. But 3 hours, you don't attempt 3 hours until you've taken care of a lot of things. And 3 hours is absolutely possible in lots of environments, really lots of environments. Not big excavation sites, not big concrete pour sites. 3 hours is not the right takt time, but a day certainly.
There's a level of magnification that goes along with this, right? I don't know that an owner ever really needs to live in a 3 hour, and I guess depending on the sensitivity of the handover, like from an owner's perspective, I feel like they're hanging in this macro area. From a general contractor, maybe we get down to that daily level, more of a norm kind of look or approach to things. And then from my perspective, it's the trade partner, which I'm so interested in, that trade partner role and how they take the macro to the norm and then really drive a micro schedule to this hour beat that you're talking about.
So it's got to be designed so that it can be done. How often is a prefabrication plan put in place before the project starts in the field? It's something that's an afterthought. It's after we do the buyout, we get whomever, and they say, yeah, I want to prefabricate shower valve assemblies, as opposed to the plumbing engineer, the mechanical engineer that designs the system. It specifies an assembly called a shower valve assembly. That's completely different. Buyout is different. What happens in the shops are different. It goes on and on, how things are different. You need to get a lot of things upstream to get to a 3 hour takt time. But it's surprising how quickly you can get to 2 hours without a lot of, 2 days without a lot of prefabrication. So let me just, while continuous flow construction is seen as a better planning system, it's a pretty radical change. Particularly, it's a profound change for the people putting the work in place. And so here's why I'm saying that. First of all, performers don't start out. Let's say whatever plumber first is gets sent out to the job. Do they have a sense of how operations science has impacted continuous flow? So in other words, if their foreman says, hey, get me more whatever shower valve assemblies, and doesn't say, and more people, you will automatically know you're making this project longer. And somebody needs to speak up when something like that happens. And there's a lot of different things. You can do the different examples, but where you get variation in parts or kitting, it's, if every box of screws has got a different number of screws in it, it's like, how do we work on that? So it starts with, you've got to have a sensibility. And I say everybody in the continuous flow environment needs a sensibility about what helps and what doesn't help. Starting more work without having finished work is starting more. It loads up the inventory of work in process, and everything takes longer. The next thing, performers, whomever, mechanics or operators, they need to start the project takt time proficient. Whatever the interval is, 3 hours, 3 days, they need to be able to do the work that's been specified at the standard of quality that's required. Finish it all. That means takt time proficient. And if you're hiring out of a hall every day, that's a problem, because they're in a survival mode, first of all, as individuals. And I say hiring every day out of a hall, not a union contractor that has a regular staff of people. But the people coming out of the hall every day are not takt time proficient. So automatically you're introducing variation, and the variation is the start of all problems in construction. So I'm going to give you one more, and then I'm going to ask you to comment on the things I've said. That the performers need to have agency, and agency to stop the line, agency to say, hey, boss, is a better way, or hey, boss, I'd like to try this way. Can I do it online, or would you like me to try it offline first? And it's to speak up for yourself and to be accountable, to join in the accountability of how the project is going. Stopping the line is just one of the issues. And in a lot of cases, the performers have him say, hey, shut up, go back to work. Yeah. Probably said in more colorful language than I just said. So start the project with that new common sense about flow and what leads to it. Start the project takt time proficient, and start the project with the expectation that you're going to speak up for the sake of the project and everybody on it.
Yeah, I think those are coming in.
And I get 9 more.
Oh man, I have
9 more of these bullets.
Days and listen to you talk. I just want to give you some quick feedback from my perspective. I love that you're calling our trade workers performers. They are performers. They are athletes in a way. They are what makes things happen, right? The men and women in the field are the ones adding true value to the projects that we claim that we build. And I think that's important to recognize at first. I think a lot of times we'll drive by projects and I'm guilty of this. I even correct myself sometimes. I'll say, I built that job over there. Or I'll even say, now I was part of a team that built that project over there. And all my kids are like, shut up, Dad. We know that already. But I think it's important to recognize them as performers. I think their performance matters. I think they're similar to a game of football, right? They're giving their bodies, they're giving their lives, which they only have so much capacity of a life, and they're donating that to the cause of building a project. And so to just simply recognize them as performers, I think is big. The common sense of production laws, I think we need to be able to teach that more to the people in the field doing the work, because they're the ones that ultimately can recognize and stop that. I think we add stress to people in the work, right? It's the constant feed of the bottleneck or standing over the bottleneck while they're working doesn't help things. It just slows things down, makes people nervous, result in defects in other ways. I think the expectation of speaking up is one of the biggest experiments. That worker agency is so important. I have to connect you to a friend of mine, a genuine friend of mine. His name is John Toops. He works within the big oil and gas industry. He's got a program that allows agency to workers where they can go into an application and just write anonymously to the leadership of construction organizations so that there is direct communication there. Because I credit exactly what you just said to the success of my construction career. How I go out, I create a fun environment where everybody can speak up. In fact, that's one of the reasons I always wear a hat, is because it reminds me that I wear it in a professional setting. Like I'll wear it talking to the engineer, architect, owners of a job, but it reminds me that I came from the field, that there's a certain level of I don't even want to say respect, because of recognizing the people in the field as performers and more than just wrench turners, and that they're more than just the vest that they're wearing. The expectation of speaking up, to be able to go out there and enable that, and to develop trust with the people doing it, doing the work, and not just creating agency, but expecting agency, I think is
exactly. Yes. Expecting it in the moment. And agency in the moment is what continuous flow construction needs. It's not mere agency I can have an anonymous way of speaking. No, that's not speaking up for yourself and the project.
No, it's,
and
hey,
your colleagues.
I just showed up to my work site.
That's not it.
And there's a disturbance that I was not expecting. Problem, red alert, and on. What are we all doing about this? How do we flock to and fix? You're really connecting some dots on Bob Emilione's The Triumph of Classical Management for me, where he said leaders got to give up their status, rights, and privileges that they've earned over time to the people who are doing the work. And when we can do that as leaders in the construction industry, now we're talking about expected agency. Man, you're about to get me fired up. I don't know if I can handle the other 9 points right now. Yeah. Woo.
Well, we might not have time for them, but so next one. Performers often come to the project expecting to just do what they are told to do.
Oh my goodness.
And this is a mindset. It's a mindset that's obviously been reinforced. And it's like you can be a first day apprentice and see that there's a better way of doing something. And wouldn't the foreman, not necessarily the superintendent, but wouldn't you want to hear about that? Yeah. And I'll just give you a quick example. My youngest son, he graduated in 2008, and there was a big recession, and his first job, he got laid off before he even started. And fired before he started. I guess it would have been appropriate, but whatever. But that happened 2 more times. And along the way, I brought him into my business and held him and put him on a job at a stonemason in Connecticut. And shows up at a job at Trinity College, and I forget exactly what he was asked to do, but he saw people struggling with a big stone cap on a parapet wall. Who knows how much? An individual couldn't lift that. 2 people couldn't lift that. It needed to be lifted with a rolling crane. And they struggled and it took so long. And so he just pulled out his phone, and this is even back in 2008, and he videoed what was going on. And then he showed that video to the people who were doing it, and they said, shoot, we weren't even doing it the way we said we were going to do it. And he says, well, let's try it the way you said you're going to do it. I'll video it the next time. And so he's videoing it the next time. The foreman is like getting upset with my son. He's going to know. This is the kind of thing you want to do. Are we following our process? Well, it turned out that the process when they followed it was worse. And so then is okay, let's stop. Like, why do we think we know how to get this done? Because they had to remove all of these caps on this huge building at Trinity College in Connecticut. So it's don't do just what you're told to do. If they had done that, people would have been hurt, frankly, in that case. But that's a problem, and we've got to change that mindset.
That mindset is deeply embedded too. Like in my house, right? When my kids come home, or my kids are growing up now, shoot, we don't even have spelling tests anymore. But they used to have spelling tests, and they would. Well, my kids are.
Wait a minute, you're not taking spelling tests?
18, about to go to college, and I don't know.
I'm talking about you, not the kids.
But I tell you, when they were young, they would bring home these spelling tests, and they would have to practice them. But we didn't talk about the word, right? Like we talked about what the word meant. We researched the words. We went deeper to truly understand what it is, because in our house, we try our best not to teach people to pass a test. We teach people to think. So don't bring this, hey, how do you spell the word to me? Bring the right. What does the word mean? Are you familiar with it? Can you use it in a, this is an approach that society needs to rethink how we're doing things. That it's not about checking the box. It's about understanding the box and making sure that box is worth being checked. That's a different mindset.
Yes, it is. So that leads to my next point. These first 4 things I've said, it's not just the performers. It's the people who are the leader managers, the leader supervisors. They need the grounding in the operations science. They need to know that their people need to be takt time proficient so that they can catch it, they can make it happen. They need to know that people need agency. And by the way, so do the leader managers. Right? I've met too many superintendents who are just doing what the project executive told them to do. And they know that there's a better way than that.
Yeah, it's the same conversation at levels, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I just want to say this. I don't know how many people have been sitting here listening to us talk and they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. If so-and-so would just listen to Hal, or if this person would just do that, versus, hey, we're talking to you. Like, you're talking to me right now, Hal. I live 4 days a week on a job site. Like, everything you're saying, I personally need to take, grasp, really reflect on my self-awareness or my self-understanding of what you're saying. Like, you are talking to me, the person listening to this podcast.
Okay. The design of the building or structure is rarely done based on constructing to a takt time. The current best practice for designing for continuous flow construction, so design for manufacturing, DFM, we need to design for continuous flow construction. We need to particularly pay attention to design for continuous flow assembly. Assembly has to be designed for it. Installation and commissioning.
That's a big one. I can't tell you how many times we have tried to commission a building in the zones that we've built it, but there's equipment outside that zone that feeds a specific, and that equipment's not done yet, and you can't commission. I mean, that's huge. That's very important.
How do you commission? I keep using plumbing because I know that's where you started, but how do you commission heat trace on a pipe that is got glass insulation on it? How do you do that? You've got to design. That needs to be a pre-commissioning step or whatever. That's the wrong term, but it needs to be a commissioning step before insulation.
Yeah.
It's like closing in a wall. You can't inspect a wall before you put the finished coat drywall on it.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got to go through all of this so that there's got to be that extra commissioning or inspection step in there. Buyout of trade contractors doesn't consider proficiency with continuous flow construction. It's still low price or availability. I can get a crew out here tomorrow. Not the one I wanted, but I can get them out or whatever, a company, another company. Yeah, but we're doing continuous flow construction here. The messages don't necessarily get to the people who are doing the buyout. A big consideration is prefabrication, offsite construction, packaging, kitting, storage, transportation. These today, too many of them are afterthoughts. No, you design your kitting approach. You design your packaging approach, it's transportation. All that needs to be designed. I mean, I saw a truck pull up on, I forget where the heck I was. It was a data center project. A truckload of hollow metal door frames shows up without any place to store it. The trailer had to be taken back. They were just delivering. They were sitting on the job site and they were all racked. I mean, not all of them, but many of them were racked. And because they were racked, they were stressed. So making them square, now that's a problem because they were stressed. The shape has changed. I don't know how many they tossed out on that project. No, they didn't think that through. Somebody got a good deal on hollow metal door frames. I don't know. There's no learn step. Should, can, will, did learn the structure there of LPS. There's no learn step that's a formal element of continuous flow construction system. That learn step, it's essential. Absolutely essential.
Yeah, I love how you just ended it. And I've never really thought about the Takt construction, a continuous flow construction system missing the feedback. And so I have a question for you, but I want to hear the other two before I ask it because I'm afraid you.
Okay. Don't lose it. So this one's a big one, and key elements of the continuous flow construction system are ignored. And I say system, and I'm going to suggest that the current comprehensive system is described by Jason Schroeder. Now, that's a big step, and people might stop listening to me, or they might applaud me for saying something like that. I have no idea. But he includes this things that I want to mention right now. So these key elements of a continuous flow system are the ones that are missing: workable backlog, swing capacity, buffers, short takt time durations, 3 hours versus 1 week, or let's just say a half a day, or a day versus a week, or even 2 days versus a week. And then policies, which the other word for policy is agreement, an agreement that we shall do it this way. Not that we can do it this way. Well, I mean, you could have a can policy too, but we have agreements that we will do it certain ways. These are all you don't have these elements. I'll say them again. Workable backlog. In other words, when something goes, you have a variance that interrupts flow, that key workers can move to other work. It's available to be worked on, and it's not on let's call it the critical path. Swing capacity. We thought it was a 2-person, 1-day task. And for some reason, it's 3 days. It's 3 people. Where's that other person coming from? Well, we've got swing capacity. What are they doing? They're otherwise doing workable backlog. Buffers, there's 3 different kinds of buffers. I'm not going to go into that right this minute, but there are places where we know we're going to encounter variation. And because we know we're going to encounter variation that we have not yet dealt with, we need to buffer for it. And then finally, the agreements. We need new agreements in so many places. Like, how about an agreement with a transportation company to bring shower valve assemblies to the job site sometime between 3:30 in the afternoon and 5 p.m.? It's like, that's the window you're going to have. We need agreements that say that we're going to need 2 deliveries a day, or we're going to get 1 delivery a day, or whatever it is, and not a truckload, because a truckload is going to mean we got to do something else. And these are just examples, of agreements. But we need to put all kinds of different agreements in place than we have today. Even agreements to use the man lift. If you can walk up a stair, 1 flight, you don't need to be on the lift. And you certainly can walk down. If you can walk up 1, you can walk down 2. And you don't need to be on the lift going down. And and by the way, if you know what operation you're going to do, you don't need to bring your stupid toolbox with 100 pounds of tools with you, because that would keep you from walking up the stairs or safely walking down. And so it's a matter of having the kinds of thinking stuff through and putting agreements in place, policies that supports continuous flow construction.
We have all these different scheduling systems that are out there. I'm a firm believer that they're all trying to do the same thing. What I'm after is how you just got this mega project in South Carolina. What does your schedule to production system look like? What is the optimal way that you would go about taking a schedule to a production system? Is it Takt? Is it CPM? Is it Last Planner? Is it Kanban, Scrum? Like, all this stuff. What does this continuous flow construction system really look like?
Let me start with saying it will never be Scrum, because we shouldn't be using Scrum in the field. Some people are using it in a job site trailer, and I understand why, but we should be using the Kanban method in the job site trailer, like, full stop. And we can go in someday, you can call me back and I can explain that. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I recall 4 years ago, you said something like, I quote you, CPM would work if we focused on flow. What do you think? You still believe that?
I have made CPM work by focusing on flow and making it easy for people to understand. I don't think CPM would work if we only focus on flow. No, because it's too hard for a lot of people who aren't familiar with the document to understand.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems, not the only one, is people typically do what they're measured on. And if you're measured on starting per the schedule, you can flood a job without trying. Flood a job with work, started work.
You will.
But all this stuff that's
You're
not finished.
incentivized.
There's lots of problems. Yeah. I mean, and you're incentivized to do it. So you're going to get a late project. And there's a lot of ways you can, with CPM, get late projects. And I'm just picking that one. You said you've made it work. That's different than that's the best way of doing it. So your question essentially said, how would I bring a schedule to a project site? Well, the only schedule that I would bring to a project site for continuous flow construction is one that was developed by the key participants of that site. And I wouldn't have to bring it. They would bring it. And that would include the documents that showed that the design was informed or satisfied the intention to build in a continuous flow construction means.
What format does that look like?
So it doesn't need to be this huge document, but there needs to be some thinking that starts that off. You're going to cut not the project in half by going from 1 week to 3 days, but you're going to take over 25% out of the time of the project by doing that. And if you can get to 1 day, I haven't run the numbers again. You have to have this conversation with Colin Milbert. He's got a little spreadsheet to figure that out quickly. But wouldn't you like to do a project in 9 weeks that would otherwise take 36? Yeah, you would like to do that for all kinds of reasons. And it doesn't take more people to do that. It takes working in a continuous flow construction manner. So people don't understand. It's pretty simple math that allows you to do that. So basically go for the appropriate takt time for the complexity that's in the job and the goals that you have on the project. But shorter takt times basically create the opportunity for more improvement and more learning. So that,
I've got a million things for you,
me?
and I don't want to end, but I know I want to respect your time as well.
Sure.
I want to know, clearly you are one of my lean idols. I'm curious I have, again, 5 or 6. You, Dr. Milberg, Jennifer Lacey, Jesse Hernandez, Jason Schroeder. It would be my top 5 right there, period. So end of story. And I will keep saying it because this is my podcast, brother. Who are your lean idols? Who are the people who you chalk your construction, who taught you all this stuff that you know? Who are those people that you would like to shout out or give some love to for investing in your knowledge and gifts to this construction industry?
Well, the 2 people in particular are Mike Daly and John Barbario. They're executives at the Neenan Company. There are other people too, but I had to make a deal with them. And my deal was, don't let me be stupid because I'm ignorant. Just because I'm a boss doesn't mean you should do things. We need to all be accountable. And by being accountable, that means taking care of whatever needs to be taken care of, like picking up that or whatever mess on the floor, not as opposed to calling for somebody to come pick it up. Just be accountable, take care of the environment, the situation, each other. That's what it means to be accountable. It doesn't mean simply do what you promised to do. In fact, I don't want you to do what you've promised to do if that's going to create a problem for other people. Let's go have a conversation. That's what it means being accountable. There's a whole bunch. I came to the industry being on the board of a design build construction company, the Neenan Company. That was my first position in the industry. And that then led to the chief operating officer role for about 3 years. And I just had a lot of people who support at the Neenan Company who supported my learning and keeping me from being stupid. Along the way, obviously, Glenn Ballard, Greg Hollow, and numerous other people, Iris Tomaline. And then in my consulting engagements, I had to learn to be a consultant. Doing something consultative versus just telling people what to do, those are 2 different things. So there's a different group of people. Chauncey Bell is a person that comes to mind, Fernando Flores. Both of them had a big role in teaching me to be consultative.
How would you finish this out?
So the way that I'm finishing is that continuous flow construction, also known as takt construction, poorly known as takt planning, But continuous flow construction is a socio-technical work system.
What does that mean for the people listening? Socio-technical work system.
So it's a system of people and processes or practices that it takes all of them. It takes whatever the policies and practices and the people to make it work. And you got to pay attention to the technique so you have to emphasize the technique. The technique in continuous flow construction is different than it is in the last planner system, is different than general construction. And it's particularly different in the takt time planning. However, it's overlooking the people today. And the first step is to recognize that people are people, that respecting people is insufficient to doing something like this. We need to respect human nature and people. And by human nature, I mean the vast, let's call it mosaic, that shows up every day of cognitive blindness, cognitive bias. It's different paradigms, different worldviews, different backgrounds, different educations. It's like we've got to respect human nature and design our system based on it. And we're not there yet. Our last planner system could be better, I'm sure. But takt construction, continuous flow construction, we need a lot of improvements. And those improvements, I've gone through many of those improvements earlier here.
Yeah, man, Hal, my respect and admiration for you is profound. I can't tell you how many ways I look up to you.
I thought you said there was going to be no bullshido today. Didn't you? Okay.
I'm just telling you that your contributions to this industry are very much appreciated. I am grateful for those. Every time I speak to you, I learn. Your lessons and contributions will live on through me. And I'm excited as I get into this new era of academia and writing down some of these things that you've taught me. And I will forever give you that credit. You are an idol. You should wear that sensei belt proudly because you've earned it, right? And I see you right now giving up your status, rights, and privileges that you've earned over your 40, 50-year career in the construction industry. So right now, right, if you want to know what a lean builder is, right, that's what lean builders do. Everything that Hal is not wanting to accept right now, you've deserved that over the years. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I know the industry is. I know that you have not just impacted my lives, but several others as well. And honestly, we owe a lot of credit to you. I hope that you just accept that with a thank you because you deserve that. So thank you for, yes, sir. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We will have you back. That is a guarantee. And I apologize that it took me 4 years to bring one of my favorites on the show. So thank you for your time today, Mr. Macomber.
You're welcome.